What is up, guys? Today we're back with another video and we're going to be talking about 4 different misconceptions that are really common when it comes to getting into college. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kyle and I'm a senior at Georgia Tech. And when I look back at when I was in high school, there were definitely a couple things I was confused about when it came to the college admissions process. And of course, these are just my opinions, they are not facts, and every school's admission process will work a little bit differently, but hopefully after watching this video, you'll have a better idea of what colleges are and are not looking for in candidates. And with that, let's get started. The first misconception is probably one of the biggest, and it's one that I know was ingrained into me for years before I went to college, and it's that colleges want students who are well-rounded. So naturally, with that in mind, I was in soccer, tennis, orchestra, computer club, science olympiad, a whole bunch of stuff to try to be well-rounded. What I've come to realize since then is that colleges actually don't care about their individual students being well-rounded, they care about having a well-rounded student body. What this means is that individual students don't need to be good at everything, they just need to be really good at one specific thing. Then you can acquire students who all have different specialties, and then you will have a well-rounded student body. Think about it from this perspective. If you were going to be recruiting for the Olympic team, would you be picking someone who is pretty good at about 5 different sports, or would you pick someone who is incredible at one sport? You would pick them for that one sport, and then you would pick different people for all the other sports to make sure that you had the best chance of getting gold medals. That's exactly what colleges are doing, except it's students and not Olympians. This isn't to say that you shouldn't try to be well-rounded. Like I just said, I was pretty well-rounded, I guess, in high school, and I think I turned out all right. But it's just important to keep in mind that having 6 different clubs when you're applying for college isn't going to make you stand out. What's going to make you stand out is if you did something on the national level or something like that, that shows that you really have the chops for it, and then they're going to want you because you're really good at that one specific thing. The second misconception is one that I had to include, and that's because I see it everywhere, from YouTube comments to Reddit posts, and it's that people are so hung up on colleges caring about their scores. Now, obviously, this is not me saying that colleges don't care at all about scores, because that wouldn't make any sense, and clearly that's not true. What I'm saying is it probably matters much less than you think it does. And I see it happen every year. Someone will get a 1600 on the SAT, they'll have a 4.0 in high school, and they won't get into their college, and they'll be like, so-and-so got in and they only had a 1450. This is because colleges only care about those scores up to a certain point. If I got a 1600 on the SATs, I'm probably pretty smart. But if I got a 1450 on the SATs, I'm also probably pretty smart. If I'm a college admissions officer, I'm not going to look at the person with a 1600 versus the person with a 1450 and say, well, the person with the 1600 must be a little bit smarter, so I'm just going to take them. Otherwise, we wouldn't need admissions officers, and the whole process could be automatic. You could have an algorithm, just goes through all the people's scores, and we would pick the smartest ones for our schools. The reality is, once you get into a certain upper range, the actual score doesn't matter as much anymore. So in this example, if I'm looking at that student who got a 1600 on their SAT, but they didn't do too much outside the classroom, and then I look at the student who had a 1450 on their SAT, but they wrote really passionate essays, and then they talked about their experiences going to nationals and science olympiad, I would actually probably be more inclined to take the person who got a 1450 on the SAT. That's not to say that it's a one or the other type of thing. We could take both those students, we could take neither of those students. What's important to keep in mind is that it's more than just the scores. You need to be thinking about the whole package and make sure that you are a good fit for that school. If you just have really high scores, you should not be expecting to get into a school simply because you got a 1600 on your SAT or a 4.0 GPA. If you're trying to get into a prestigious school, that will not be enough. So the point you should be trying to take away from this is that yes, you should try to do well on your SATs, your ACTs, and have a good GPA, but if that's the only thing you're focusing on and you're neglecting everything else, thinking those scores are going to carry you into your favorite school, you will probably be sorely mistaken, and it's very important to focus on other things other than your scores. The third misconception that I want to talk about kind of ties in with the last one, which is that some people think essays are not important. Now, the reason this ties in with the last point is because some people think that the only thing they need to worry about is their scores, and they'll write their essays the night ahead of time because no one's really going to look at them. The reality is, if you're trying to go to a good college, they are almost definitely going to look at those essays regardless of how good your scores are. Once again, this ties back into the point of why we have admissions officers in the first place. Otherwise, we would just have an algorithm that sorted through everyone. We need admissions officers who sit down and read the essays and make a determination about how good of a fit someone is. Think of it this way. If your scores are too low, you'll probably get weeded out and no one will ever read your essay. That's true. However, if your scores are solid, you'll probably end up in a pile of other essays and other applications where someone is going to actually read through them and look at what you have going for you and whether you're a good fit for the college. At that point, your scores can't carry you anymore. What's going to matter is how good of an essay you wrote and what's on your resume. Your recruiter is going to look at those two things and they're going to make the determination based off that, because everyone in that stack is going to be smart enough to be able to do well at that college. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see a full video on this topic, but in the meantime, here's a couple pointers on how you can write a better college essay. Here's a pretty big pointer that I think a lot of people could learn from. If you're writing too generic of a college essay that you could substitute college A for college B, you're doing it wrong. Obviously, admissions officers are going to be able to read right through that. That's part of their job, and they read so many essays. You need to write something that's specific to that school that shows that you're actually passionate about it and that you did the research, and that's going to sit much better with the admissions officer. In fact, I've even heard about cases where people completely forgot to change college A to college B, in which case if I was applying to Harvard, I might have said, I'm really interested in attending Georgia Tech because, yeah, that's not going to sit very well with the Harvard admissions officer, and you are going to get eliminated immediately regardless of everything else on your transcript. Point number 2, you should be writing multiple iterations and getting them reviewed by other people. Do you really think that writing it the night before and not having anyone else look at it is going to be putting your best foot forward? Even if there are no typos or big mistakes in the essay, there are going to be some areas that could use a little extra polish, and that little extra polish just might be the thing to get you into that college. So it's worth spending the extra time to make sure your essays are done well. And point number 3, use your word count wisely. If I remember correctly, a lot of these essays have a word requirement. For example, you have to write less than 650 words for your essay. Now, it might not be too hard to come up with 650 words to put in your essay, but you shouldn't be using fluff words because that's not going to do anything for you. You want to make sure that whatever you're putting in that essay is going to make you look better and not just fill space. And that ties back into this idea of writing multiple iterations. On your first attempt, depending on the way you write, you might have a lot of fluff in your essay, and that's okay. Go through it, figure out which parts are fluff, and cut them out. Once you've cut out that fluff, you can emphasize the parts that make your essay great. You can bolster those sections, and that's going to make a big difference in the eyes of the admissions officer, so they're not sitting there reading through some sentences that don't really add anything to your essay. And the last misconception that I want to talk about is that people think they need to go on a tour before they apply to show the college that they're interested and bolster their chances of getting in. Now, this is not to say that colleges never consider this when they're looking at your application. I obviously have no idea either way because every college does something a little bit different, but in my personal experience, this definitely is not that big of a deal. In fact, when I think about it, for the most part, I ended up getting into colleges that I never toured, and I didn't get into the colleges that I did tour. Now, of course, this could just be a coincidence, but I really don't think it is, and that's because these colleges need to recognize that people live across the country, or if you're an international student, potentially across the world from their campus. Frankly, it's not realistic for these colleges to expect everyone to fly in from anywhere else in the country or the world just to spend a day checking out their campus. Now, I still think touring is a great idea, and especially before you commit anywhere, I think it's a great idea to tour just to make sure that you're a good fit at that campus, but I don't think any colleges are going to hold it against you if you don't tour ahead of time. And if you're concerned about not showing that you're engaged in the college and that you're interested in going there, there are typically other ways you can do that. I'm sure not every college does it, but things like virtual chats or Q&As are a great way for you to show from home that you're interested in going there and that you want to learn more about the school. I recognize that at the time this video is going up, touring campuses might not be an option for a lot of people, and in which case you can look for a virtual tour potentially on the college's website, or you can look for a YouTuber who shows videos of the campus and talks about what it's like to be there. If you're interested in Georgia Tech, you're in the right place. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please hit that thumbs up button and feel free to share this with others who you think could benefit from it. If you're new here, consider subscribing for new videos every single week. That's it. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.